By the time the smoke drifted above the cul-de-sac and the sprinkler system woke up like an anxious chihuahua, everyone in our suburban kingdom had already seen the banner my drone unfurled over the gender reveal, "Not my baby." It was the kind of message you can't unsee, like a bad tattoo or your dad's Facebook political status. Neon letters, balloon arch, Costco cupcakes, a Bluetooth speaker blasting a playlist called Sweet Family Vibes. All of it paused while my drone circled like a judgmental hawk over the bouncy castle. You could hear the HOA president whisper, "Is this in the bylaws?" While my half-brother, half by blood, full by audacity, stood with a bottle of sparkling apple cider and the world's most counterfeit smile. I used to be a quiet guy who paid for lawn service and believed love was a 30-year mortgage plus joint Netflix. But cheating changes the weather inside your skull. Betrayal rewires your breathing. And when infidelity grows legs and introduces itself as family, the air itself tastes like a copper penny. I didn't become vengeful overnight. I took the scenic route. I mapped it on a whiteboard with dry erase markers from Target, color-coded like I was planning a heist or a science fair project on how toxic love thrives in the suburbs. Revenge isn't rage, it's choreography. Also, if you're going to blow up a gender reveal, you need permits, a vendor for smoke bombs, a backup drone battery, and a moral chiropractor to adjust your spine mid-sin. I had everything except the chiropractor. The moment the confetti cannon boomed and released a cloud of surprise, pink or blue, I honestly didn't care. My drone dipped, banner snapped, the neighborhood's collective jaw staggered open, and my wife's face, the soon-to-be mother, the woman I'd proposed to, outside a Phillies game with a ring I bought on 12 months of zero interest, turned frostbite white. Kyle, my half-brother, executed a blink that was 90% confusion and 10%. "Do you think we can return the balloons?" The crowd gasped so hard a wind formed. Somewhere, a child asked his mother if "Not my baby" was part of the game, and she said, "Yes, honey, it's an adult game of consequences." I'd like to tell you I felt triumphant, but the truth is more American than that. Complicated, performative, litigious. Part of me wanted to hold her hand and say, "We can fix this," but the louder part of me, the echo chamber built from late-night podcasts about loyalty and dudes shouting into microphones about boundaries, wanted spectacle. We feed on spectacle here. It's the national snack. By the time the drone landed and the HOA text thread became a Supreme Court docket, I'd already become the main character of a story I never asked to star in. The priest from the church down the street showed up because his cousin was at the party and posted a live video. "Peace, folks," the priest said. "I feel led to pray for clarity." And I almost laughed, because clarity had been outsourced to Amazon long ago. The camera phones multiplied like rabbits. You could practically hear the algorithm purring. If I rewind, if I tell you this backward like a conspiracy documentary narrated by a man who collects antique typewriters, the plot starts several weeks earlier, with the simplest clue in the world: silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind where the dishwasher hums and someone you love breathes beside you, but the guilty kind, the kind measured in deleted messages and suddenly perfect hair. She told me the pregnancy was our new beginning, a fresh chapter, a family upgrade with nap schedules and minivans. And for a breath I believed her, because that's what love teaches you in this country. Believe first, redact later. But then came Kyle, appearing at our cookouts with his fitness influencer grin and a laugh that sounded like he'd read spoilers for my life. The man's entire personality was protein powder and, "How many reps you got, bro?" He hugged too long, made jokes about our couch being comfortable for naps, and watched her the way wolves look at maps. Tonight, under the drone's quiet whir, he was performing innocence for the neighbors, hands up, brows knitted, a theater kid auditioning for Misunderstood. People love to misunderstand their way out of accountability. I had data, though, not just gut, not just jealousy, but screenshots, timestamps, a GPS pin that placed her car behind the 24-hour gym at 2:11 a.m. I built a folder on my desktop titled Science. Inside, a first trimester date that didn't match the last time she touched me without flinching. A bill from a motel looking exactly like motels look when they're only good at two things, and the fact that Kyle's cologne had colonized our hallway. It smelled like citrus and male podcast. The banner, that was the chorus. The verses were still coming. The kitchen is where American dreams go to live or die. We designed them like altars, quartz, copper pans, an air fryer shaped like a spaceship. Then we summon each other there to confess. The night I confronted her, the house smelled like basil and burnt toast, because I was trying to make a point about how even simple things scorch when you look away. She came in carrying grocery bags and the kind of exhaustion you can't buy at a store. I set my phone on the counter and pressed play on a recording. Her voice, laughing too softly, saying Kyle's name like a song hook. She stared at the ceiling fan like it could helicopter her out of this scene. "Tell me I'm wrong," I said, and those 4 words felt like opening a courtroom where the judge is also the janitor and the defendant is the person you promised forever. She cried. Of course she cried. Tears are the smoke bomb of cheating. They roll in, they make everything blurry, they leave your clothes smelling like yesterday. She said the pregnancy made her feel lonely, that our life became a to-do list, that Kyle was a mistake with arms. She hated herself, she said, even as she defended him, which is a special form of toxic love. Protect the hand that cuts you. I asked why my half-brother. She said fate is rude like that. I said fate is a lazy writer. She said it wasn't about me, which is hilarious because betrayal is always about the person who bleeds. I still love you, she said. And I believed her, which is its own scandal. Americans have a way of believing contradictory things like it's cardio. She placed my hand on her stomach like a peace offering. I felt the hard circle of future there and understood that this story had entered a genre I didn't subscribe to. She wanted promises. I wanted proof. I brought up dates. She brought up feelings. I mentioned the motel. She mentioned our first apartment, the time we ate cereal for dinner on moving day and thought we were invincible. Memory is such a talented liar. That's when the back door opened and Kyle stepped in with a laugh that suggested he'd knocked, but time itself had decided to let him in. "Hey, fam," he said, using the kind of family he hadn't earned. He was in a gym hoodie and dreams of being a hero in a movie where heroes don't pay child support. "Bro," he started, like I was an equal, like we shared more than DNA and a father who mailed holiday checks in generic greeting cards. I held up a hand. The word bro had expired in my home. He insisted they'd end it, that the timing was messy, that he'd help in whatever way I needed, like betrayal comes with a customer service line. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because laughing was cheaper than throwing something expensive. He talked about responsibility. I talked about math. He talked about fate. I talked about fingerprints on a motel key. When the conversation slid toward yelling, American yelling, full of I statements and 4-letter words, and a quick reference to boundaries from a podcast, we paused. That's the thing about family. Even in war, there are ad breaks. Then I laid out my terms. We'd do a paternity test. No drama, no theatrics. We would protect the child from our mess because that's the one non-negotiable rule of any civilization worth its sidewalks. We would tell the truth to ourselves before we told it to the world. And while we waited for results, there would be distance. He wouldn't come here. She would choose honesty over performance. They both nodded like students promising to read the book this time. And somewhere beneath my ribcage, something old and tired folded its arms. After they left, separately, carefully, I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and drew a map of consequences. Not because I wanted revenge in that exact moment, but because revenge was the only language that translated the pain into action. If you've never sketched a battle plan with a mechanical pencil, next to a bottle of antacids. You might think I'm dramatic. But think about how America teaches men to be okay. Pound it down, turn it into productivity, maybe a side hustle. My side hustle became a timeline. While I waited for the lab to do its alchemy, I collected anecdotes like a trial lawyer. The misplaced receipt, the neighbor who saw a car at midnight, the text that said same place, like they had invented secrecy. I became a private investigator in my own life, a conspiracy theorist with better fonts. The day the results arrived, I didn't open them. I looked out the window at our mailbox, at the flag tilted toward hope, at a squirrel making a meal of the bird feeder like nature herself was stealing from me. Then I opened the envelope, and time split like a zipper. If this were a movie, this is where the string section would stop and the audience would lean forward. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I wrote 3 words on my legal pad. Now we begin. Begin is a funny verb when the beginning is a controlled demolition. I decided early that revenge would not be a crime. It would be a curriculum. Unit 1, the truth. Unit 2, the stage. Americans pretend we don't love theater, but look at our politics, our Instagram reels, our courtroom shows rerun at 2 a.m. We worship spectacle because it organizes chaos into a chorus you can hum. I rented the community center the same way old men rent fishing boats. Calm, practiced, a little too cheerful. I invited exactly the right people. Her parents, mine, the pastor who blesses every casserole, the HOA president whose sense of order could balance the federal budget, the neighbors who mistake gossip for Pilates. I told everyone we were doing a gratitude circle before the baby shower, because nothing magnetizes attendance like the promise of wholesomeness. I hired a DJ who owed me a favor, and a photographer who thought this was a surprise vow renewal. "What's the theme?" she asked. I said, "Clarity." She made a mood board with eucalyptus leaves and sincerity. Meanwhile, Kyle DM'd me to ask if we were cool. The syllables of that question clicked in my ear like a broken metronome. I wrote back, "Family is complicated." Translation, a storm is a family if you stand in it long enough. That morning, before the event, I printed the lab result on heavy stock paper like a diploma. Not mine. I didn't burst into flames reading it. My chest felt both hollow and full, like a church before the service. I tucked the paper into a leather folder and rehearsed my lines, gentle enough to spare the child future embarrassment, sharp enough to end the performance. I even practiced breathing because podcasts say breathing is the difference between sanity and headlines. I almost canceled everything. I almost drove to the ocean and threw my phone into it. But revenge is momentum. If you stop, it collapses on top of you. So I set the chairs in a circle, passed out index cards for gratitude, dimmed the lights the way restaurants do when they want you to forgive a mediocre steak, and opened my mouth. I didn't accuse at first. I told a story about love, about how family is a verb and marriage is a long hallway lined with mirrors. I said I had failed in tender ways. Too many late nights at the office, too much faith in autopilot, not enough small thank yous. People nodded, relieved, because confession makes great television. Then I shifted. I spoke the words betrayal and infidelity without flinching. I said cheating like a man learning a new act of speech. I introduced the idea of boundaries and consequences like a civics lesson. I did not name him. I did not shame her. I let the truth sit upright with its hands folded. And then I asked the DJ to lower the music. I told the pastor I respected his blessing, but this required a different sacrament, the sacrament of honesty. I opened the folder. She knew from my eyes before anyone else knew from the page. She crumpled a broken stanza. Her mother covered her mouth with both hands like she could press the noise back in. My mother stared at the floor tile as if forgiveness might be printed there. Kyle stepped toward me, then stopped, then tried on a new facial expression called responsible man, and failed the fitting. I didn't gloat, I didn't shout. I spoke the facts, then the plan. We would separate for 90 days. We would find lawyers who liked paper more than blood. We would set up rules to protect the child from our circus, and we would not lie to anyone again. And then, because I'm still human, I pressed the remote and let the projector show a timeline I'd built from texts and receipts. It wasn't pornographic. It was civics. It was a simple, unbearable map. The crowd didn't gasp this time. They did something more American. They judged. You could feel opinions crystallizing like sugar. The HOA president asked whether the community center deposit was refundable under emotional duress. The pastor prayed in a whisper. Someone took a photo and then thought better and deleted it, and then immediately regretted deleting it, because that's how we tell stories now, through proof. And then came the drone. I didn't plan the drone for this room, only for later, but I'd hired a kid to run cues, and he was enthusiastic. The banner unfurled above the circle, and for a second it felt too cruel, too memeable. I pressed the kill switch, and the drone fell into a chair like a stunned bird. Laughter flickered, horrible, necessary. The event ended without a finale. People left carrying cupcakes they didn't want. The pastor hugged me like a father who doesn't know where to put his hands. She sat alone for a long time, then left with her mother. Kyle disappeared through a side door because, of course, he did. I stayed and stacked chairs and listened to the room settle down. When I got home, I put the folder on the table and ate cereal from the box. Revenge tasted like sweet dust. Here's what they don't tell you about revenge. After the fireworks, there's the parking lot. You stand there under a blinking light with your paper cup and your leftover adrenaline and realize you still have to drive home. 90 days is an eternity if you've built your life like a Lego city. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment near the freeway that smelled like other people's dinners and second chances. I bought a couch designed by someone who thinks men heal faster on gray fabric. I hung one framed print of an ocean I couldn't hear. I went to therapy because there's a line where grit becomes superstition and men who refuse help become podcasts with legs. My therapist said the words grieving and complicated. She asked about my father, about the half-brother who grew up 2 states over and visited summers, about a boy who learned early that family can be a magic trick. Now you see it, now you don't. I wanted a clean ending. America loves clean endings. A courtroom, a verdict, the music swelling. Instead, I got mornings. Coffee and the sound of neighbors arguing about who forgot the soccer cleats. I got texts from friends asking if I was okay in a tone that meant they didn't know what okay means. I got a letter from the pastor reminding me that forgiveness is not a pardon. It's a decision to stop renting space to rage. I tried. Some days I failed. Some nights I walked past baby clothes in Target and felt the ground tilt. She called to talk logistics, to talk lawyers, to talk calendars, and sometimes, because we are animals built for recognizing each other, our voices softened around the word family even when family had broken its own legs. The rumor mill spun, then slowed, then found new grain. America is merciful like that. We forget so we can keep going. The lawyer meetings were like seminars on how to dismantle a life while staying polite. We made lists. Who keeps the air fryer? Who keeps the dog? Who keeps the fact that a marriage once felt holy? We crafted a parenting plan for a child who wasn't mine, because the world is kinder when men stand under hard truths and refuse to move. I won't be his father, but I will refuse to become his ghost, the story he overhears about the day everything cracked. Revenge had finished its shift. Consequence took the wheel. I met Kyle once more at a coffee shop where all the drinks are named after distant countries. He looked smaller. He said he'd start over somewhere else, maybe join a different gym, maybe read a book with no pictures in it. He tried to apologize like a man assembling a chair without instructions. I accepted the apology because carrying it hurt my back. Acceptance isn't friendship, it's a weather report. On the last day of the 90, I drove out to the edge of the city where the good radio stations go fuzzy and sat by a reservoir with a notebook. The water looked like a mirror made of arguments. I wrote down everything I had learned, and half of it looked like bumper stickers. Love is a verb, betrayal is an earthquake, revenge is a fireworks show that burns your eyebrows if you stand too close. The more useful notes were mundane. Eat breakfast. Don't text after midnight. Touch the ocean sometimes, even if it's a 4-hour drive. Call your mother. She worries because worrying is how she loves. I won't tell you that I forgave perfectly or that I healed like a triathlete. Healing is not a medal, it's a practice. I started running again, the kind of slow human jog that looks like you're returning a library book on foot. I stopped checking her social media. I learned to cook something other than cereal. And then, one afternoon, I was at a park, and a kid dropped a popsicle and cried like the world had ended, and his mom, tired, patient, gave him half of hers. It wasn't a miracle. It was better. It was ordinary kindness. That night I went home and mapped a new timeline. No more evidence, no more color-coded revenge, just boxes. Call therapist, pay rent, invite friends over for chili, return your father's call, even if his voice sounds like roads you don't drive anymore. I put a sticky note on the fridge that said, "Become the kind of man you needed at 20." On the day she gave birth, I didn't go to the hospital. I sent a card without a return address. "Congratulations," it said. "May this child grow in truth and be loved beyond our mistakes." People will say I was too soft or not soft enough. People will write their own endings for me because that's what we do. We narrate strangers and call it wisdom. Mine is quieter. I go to work. I come home. I rinse a bowl. I walk in the evening when the sky looks like an album cover from the 90s. I have neighbors who wave. I volunteer once a month at a pantry because generosity feeds better than rage. Sometimes I see a drone cut across the sky and my chest flickers. Not with pride, with remember. It is possible to live after betrayal without making betrayal your last name. It is possible to tell the truth and still choose dignity. It is possible to love a country that sells you fireworks and also, on lucky days, teaches you how to carry water. If you ask me whether I regret the banner, I'll tell you the truth I have in this moment. I regret the spectacle, not the clarity. The spectacle was for the crowd. The clarity was for the man I'm still building, one unremarkable morning at a time. Revenge opened the door. Mercy is the only thing that lets me walk through.